Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guest today is Jessica Karwat, and she's going to be talking about vegan weight loss for women and focusing on their hormonal health. Please welcome her to the show. It's very nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me, Chef AJ. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to share all about vegan weight loss for women and why it's important. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you so that you can.
I can't wait because we have a lot of vegans that watch the show, and a lot of them are women.
Amazing. I love it. So that is a topic that we're going to be covering today. And I think the best way to start is if I just share a little bit more about myself and my story. So as you can see, this is my little personal story, my little transformation as well. And I want to start with how I kind of got into the health space and going vegan and how that really, changed my life and transformed my life in so many different ways. So for me, it really started at a point where, and that's why it's focused on women's health so much, is when I was on birth control for many years and I stopped taking birth control. That was many years ago. And all of a sudden, my body was not functioning the way that I thought it should be, meaning I started having all of these weird symptoms. Like, for example, you can see here my skin breaking out, really having lots of cystic acne all over my face, my neck, my chest, my back. All of this started happening within 2 months after I stopped taking birth control. I had really bad digestive issues, really bad, weight fluctuations. My periods were all over the place. I didn't really have a regular cycle. I would wait for 6 months at a time to get a cycle. And I was like, this is obviously not normal. I'm not sure what's going on. And for many years, I tried to fix these issues by going to doctors, by, looking for creams, by going to naturopaths. I tried, everything that you can think of specifically to clear my skin. Being a young woman and having acne like this, it was, it wasn't pleasant. It was really a burden in my life, and it was really making me self-conscious. It was really making me not feel great. And I tried every possible thing you can think of when it came to that. At the same time, I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. I had an eating disorder for many years since I was very young. And so I realized there were just many different things that were going on, and my health wasn't in a good place. Now, long story short, after I think it was around the 2-year mark of struggling with my skin, struggling with my digestive issues, struggling with my relationship with food, struggling with all of those things, I decided I'm going to try to find my own solution. So I went online, I started doing my research, and I looked into different ways of eating. And I found some content about veganism, and I found these women that were sharing they went vegan and their skin cleared up and all of these benefits. And I was like, that sounds interesting. And so I went down the rabbit hole of looking up, what is veganism really? What does this mean? And then I found out about animal agriculture and how these animals are being treated, and more stuff that I had no idea about, or maybe, I had an idea about, but I didn't want to see it before that. And for the first time, I was like looking at footage that really broke my heart. And I remember in that very moment, I decided I was going to go vegan no matter what. So overnight, I always like to say cold vegan turkey. I went vegan, and I will never look back on that decision. It's been 6 years ago that maybe more even at this point. I think it's more than 6 years ago, I went vegan. And interestingly, within just 2 months, my skin cleared up. Something I've battled with for years was literally, I remember my mom, back then I was also living in Spain, just in Barcelona. And I remember my mom came to visit me from Germany, and she, came over and she looked at me. She was like, what did you do? How is your skin so clear? Because my mom was so worried. She was helping me out at that time. I, didn't have a lot of financial, I didn't have a lot of money to spend money on myself and trying to figure out solutions. So she was helping me with that. And when she saw my skin, she was like, what did you do? And I'm like, well, I went vegan. Can you believe it? Like my skin just started clearing up. Now, even though my skin cleared up, I actually, interestingly, did initially not feel that great on a vegan diet because I didn't know what I was doing. I ended up struggling with a lot of bloating still. And I actually ended up gaining weight when I went vegan because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was very confused because on the one hand, I really loved the movement. I was like, veganism is so great. I am an ethical vegan. I never want to eat meats and animal products again. And on the other hand, I am feeling like I don't know what I'm doing and I need to find out more. And that's when I went down the rabbit hole of becoming a vegan nutritionist, learning all about vegan nutrition, really figuring out how to eat the right way. And so long story short, I ended up, not only clearing my skin, losing the weight on a vegan diet, and starting to feel better and better with time. Now, later on, knowing what I knew back then, I started working as an assistant coach, which means I was working for another coach in the vegan space. And that was the first time I was really helping people. And I was working both with men and women at that time. And while I was working both with men and women, I started to see a big difference between how men were performing in the program and how women were performing in the program. I noticed that men had such an easier time following a meal plan and a training plan, and they were just very easy in following through on all of that. And these women I was working with had a harder time. They were telling me about their period problems. They were telling me about the crazy cravings that they were having around their cycle. They were telling me about the relationship with food that they were having. And so I was like, hold on, I relate to a lot of what these women are telling me. Actually, at that time, I had my own fitness trainer who was a male coach, and he put me on this like very strict workout plan, very strict meal plan, and I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't making progress the way that I wanted. And at that time, my period pain was so painful that I could barely stand up. And I remember feeling so misunderstood by the fitness world, and something like what I was doing obviously wasn't helping me, because I realized there must be more to health than just nutrition and training. And that's when I looked more into hormonal health, when I looked more into emotional healing and trauma healing. And I was like, oh my God, like we're so much more than just what we eat and how we train, but we are such, holistic beings. And that's when I combined all of it. I combined the vegan nutrition, I combined the training, I combined the hormonal health, the trauma work, the emotional work. And that's when I created my own program, when I decided to, go for it and just do what I wanted to do to really help women from all around the world. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. My company is called the Women's Academy of Transformation. My program for women is called the Plentiful Goddess Program, but it's PLANT, so from plants, which I found really nice to use that word and kind of create my own words out of plants. And so that's, what I'm doing, and what I feel like, all of the things that I'm teaching has really helped me become the best version of myself on all of these aspects. And I'm excited to share more of that with you today. So again, that's my little transformation, my physical. I did a TEDx talk as well on this topic just recently, which was, a lot of fun to do. And so I'm excited to share. These are all of the successes, all of the beautiful women a part of all of the beautiful women I got to work with so far. And obviously, these are only physical transformations, but I think we all know that physical is one aspect, but the emotional, the energy, all of that, what changes is even more powerful and even more beautiful to look at and to explore. So let me share with you the system that, I work with, that really has helped, all of these thousands of women transform. And the system is split into 3 parts. The first part is obviously vegan nutrition, right? So even though I talk about how important hormonal health is and how important, all of these other aspects are, I truly believe nutrition is at the foundation of everything, right? The things that we put into our body, that matters, and that's gonna, our body's gonna respond to the food that we're putting in. That's why when I went vegan, my skin started to clear up, because I realized, hold on, the dairy products I'm putting into my body is causing inflammation. All of this is causing me to, or my body to react in a way that is not beneficial for me. Now, the way that I have learned nutrition that has really helped me lose weight and feel my best self is by understanding how to split it up into different parts. What I mean with that is, when I first went vegan, and I mentioned to you, I didn't feel that great because I didn't know what I was doing. The way that I was eating was not helping me and was making my digestion go crazy. And I was feeling like whatever I was doing wasn't working for me and my body. And so I ended up feeling very bloated, digestive issues, and just feeling like, yeah, I have to change something about the way that I'm doing it. And so I learned that when we split vegan nutrition into 4 parts, it has really, not only obviously helped me lose weight and feel great, but all of the other women that I've been able to work with so far. Now, why this is important is, let's imagine you have been an omnivore for the majority of your life, and then you start to eat a lot of fiber all of a sudden, a lot of vegetables, a lot of carbs, very carb heavy meals. For some people, they're not going to respond well to that, and they feel like, and that's what happened to me, I was eating so many carbs that I felt like something was missing, and I wasn't fully satisfied. I felt like no matter how much I ate, it wasn't really responding to me that way. So what has helped me is understand, oh, there are different parts to food, to nutrition. And when I split it into different macronutrients, that's what they called, I will feel more satisfied. I will feel full. It's going to give me energy. It's going to stabilize my blood sugar. It's going to help with my hormonal health. And it's going to help me just feel great and look great in the long run. And so the different parts of nutrition are protein, carbohydrates or carbs in short, fiber, and fat. All of these parts are very important to look at. And I love to, have a visual like a plate here, which is going to just show you how each of your plates can look like. And this is an example of how you can split your plate into a balanced meal that's going to help balance your blood sugar, which is important for hormonal health, that's going to keep you full, and it's going to just make you feel great and your digestion as well. So the first part is protein. Now, I also like to split protein into primary and secondary protein sources. So oftentimes we think legumes and chickpeas and all of that is protein, which it is. I don't want to say it's not, but also it's very high in fiber and carbs, right? So I like to split it into primary protein sources so that we just up our protein a little bit, which is going to help our digestion. It's going to make us feel great in the long run. So my favorite primary protein sources are anything from tofu, tempeh, seitan, textured vegetable protein, bean pasta, and protein powder. I have a very good organic one that I like to put into my smoothies or like my oatmeal, which is really helping me with satiety. So that is a great one to look into. And so I always like to say, whenever you're having a meal, ask yourself, do I have any primary protein source in here? Do I have anything in here that I consider a primary protein source? In case you don't know what it is, textured vegetable protein is like dried, how do you call it? Like dried protein that it's going to soak water up and it's going to grow. And you can put it, for example, I love to put it into soups. I love soups, and sometimes I'm like, oh, my soup is missing some protein source. I like to throw in, TVP. Or sauces, for example, like I love, whole grain pasta with tomato sauce, lots of vegetables. And I put in, some TVP in there for the protein, which is going to be upping it as well. I, for example, also love silken tofu. Silken tofu is really great to put into your sauces as well, and it's upping the protein. So there's so many things that you can do. Seitan, I personally also love to make myself because I love to know what's in my food. I love to make sure that it's as, less processed as possible. And it makes, my tummy is also grateful if I, make my own seitan. And you can make even your own seitan out of legumes, right? So it doesn't even have to be vital wheat gluten. It can be out of legumes and, gluten-free as well. And tempeh I love as well because it's fermented. It's very good for your gut. And it's whole as well, right? So you see the whole beans in there. So it's less processed, for example, than tofu. Then we have our second part of our plate, which is fiber. Now, fiber is really important for digestion, for your microbiome, for, just being healthy. I feel like the average American is not eating enough fiber, right? And so anything from vegetables, fruits, legumes, really easy to get fiber in when you eat a whole food plant-based diet on a vegan diet, right? It's very easy to get enough fiber in as long as you make sure that each of your meals has some vegetables, some fruits in there. This way, you're getting a part of your portion of your plate should be some type of fiber. And I always love to fill up my plate with lots of colorful vegetables. It just makes, you fuller as well. It's less calories. It's creating, a dense meal, and it's just going to make you feel better as well in the long run. And obviously it's giving you all of the nutrients and vitamins that your body needs as well. Then we have carbs. I feel like everyone loves carbs, right? We love carbs. And I feel like also carbs get a bad reputation, but we need carbs. We need carbs to fuel our body, to have energy working out, for our brain to function, right? So carbs are great. Carbs isolated can make us not feel that great, but when we combine our carbs with fiber and protein, we're gonna feel a lot better, right? So anything carbs from like rice, potatoes, bread, grains, legumes. Again, legumes here, yes, they are a fiber source. Yes, they are a protein source, but they're also mainly a carbohydrate source, right? So you will see that some of the foods have, aspects of it. So it's not all black and white, but just also understanding it can be super helpful already. Now, when I speak about carbs, I want to speak about the good types of carbohydrates, because we also have simple carbohydrates, right? What are simple carbohydrates? Simple sugars. So anything from like sweet stuff, like donuts, and candy. These are carbs too, and they're not the good types of carbs, right? So we want to stay more with like the whole foods kind of thing. The potatoes, I really am a big fan of sweet potatoes. I could have sweet potatoes every day. They're the great kind of carbs. They're also high in fiber. And they're just they're just adding the sweetness to the food that I personally really, really love. And then important is also healthy fats, especially for us women. Fats really help us absorb nutrients out of the body, right? So I'm not talking about oils, but I'm talking about whole fats, right? Anything from avocados, nuts like cashews, almonds, walnuts, peanuts, seeds, sesame, chia, hemp seeds are really, really great, are very healthy. Chia seeds, hemp seeds are rich of omega-3 fatty acids that we need as well. And adding that extra healthy fat is going to help with satiety. It's going to help with absorbing the nutrients. It's very good for hormonal health. And yeah, it's just very easy to add it to your meals. Sprinkling some, like I really love pumpkin seeds as well. I really love just experimenting with different types of seeds and how they feel and how I want to add them to my meals. So that's one of my favorites as well, to just experiment a little bit with it. So that was the first part. I'm just going to take a sip of water. Hold on. So the first part was the nutrition, right? And excuse me, I have something in my throat.
Take your time, don't worry.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
That always happens to me when I'm doing voiceovers. It just always, I never, and the minute I get behind the microphone.
I know, right? You're like, why is this happening? It's been a long day. I've been talking a lot as well. Maybe that's why my voice is kind of getting tired. Anyways, we good. The water helped. So then we have the second part of my, the plentiful goddess system that I like to call it. So we have the vegan nutrition, right? So we now know, okay, how can I create a balanced meal that's going to make me feel full and happy and satisfied? And it's going to help me curb my cravings and help with my hormonal balance. And then we have the hormonal health, which I was sharing the story a little bit as well. I used to always think I have to push my body more, do more, ignore what my body's telling me, thinking in my mind, I was just lazy and I'm not really tired. And it's important to have like a super heavy workout. And I realized that when I was working with that male coach, obviously we never talked about periods and hormonal health. And I realized that this aspect was really missing in what I needed. Unfortunately, 80% of women have hormonal imbalances today, right? And 70% of these women don't even know that they have them. And that is a crazy number to me, because I personally never thought I had a hormonal balance. It never even crossed my mind, right? And today I speak to a lot of women who tell me, Jess, I'm trying everything to lose the weight, and I just have this like lower belly pouch, and my periods are all over the place, and I'm in pain. And I'm like, well, obviously health and nutrition is one aspect, but also let's look at hormonal health, because hormones are everything in the body. They're all connected with each other. And when one thing is off, everything else is going to be off, right? Everything else is not going to be in the right place. And so I will speak to both women that still have a cycle, and I'm also going to speak to perimenopausal or women in menopause, right? Now, women who are still having a cycle, age, I would say, when does a cycle start? It's very individual. Age 12, a lot of girls get it at age 12, let's say, right? Up to menopause, perimenopause can start as early as 40, 45, and 50. Usually, a lot of women already reach menopause. So it's, again, very individual journey as well, right? Now, women who still have a cycle, we have to understand that as women, we're going through 4 different phases. Why does this matter? When we know that we're going through 4 different phases, what we can do is we can not only adjust our nutrition to those 4 different phases, but we can also adjust our training, right? And the way that we move. And that is very important, because not only are we giving our body the nutrients that our body needs during the certain phase of the cycle, but we're also moving our body in the way that our body is craving, and the best way to not only reduce stress, but also help us really excel and be at the best that we can be during this time of the cycle. And so the 4 phases, and I'm going to go into each phase in a second, the 4 phases I'm talking about are the follicular, ovulatory, menstrual, and luteal phase. And maybe some of you have heard about those phases before, or some of you might be new, but I think it's important, no matter if you're a man or a woman, or if this is new to you or not, is to really not only understand those phases, but to embrace it and have the awareness of, when am I in which phase, and how can I support myself the best way? And so the way that I like to see it is that the follicular phase is kind of like the spring phase, right? So the follicular phase starts when your period ends, your hormones are starting to increase, especially hormone estrogen. And that's why I have those little flowers here, right? So they remind you of like reawakening, your body is reawakening, you have a lot more energy to burn, and actually your nutritional needs are a lot lower. Now, this is really important also for weight loss, because let's say you're on your weight loss journey and you're going through those 4 phases, your hunger changes throughout those phases. And the more that you know how your hunger changes, the more that you know how to support your body, the more that you know which nutrients your body needs, the more you will see a successful weight loss as well, right? And so when you don't know what's happening and you feel like, why am I so hungry right now? Why could I eat so much more than the week before? You feel like you're kind of all over the place, your cravings are taking over, and you just kind of want to figure out, okay, how can I support myself the best way? Okay. And so we have the follicular phase, which is the reawakening kind of phase of the month, which most women really love. Like, I am in the follicular phase right now. It's obviously my favorite, time of the month, because it gives me the energy. I can do a lot, usually hunger is a little bit decreased, your metabolism is slower. And then we go into the ovulatory phase. This is our summer phase. This is where estrogen, your hormone estrogen, is at a peak, where you feel like you have so much more energy to burn, where hunger is still a little bit less. And then we move into the luteal phase, which is our our autumn, our fall phase, right? And this is where a lot of women are experiencing PMS symptoms. This is also where a lot of women are hungrier, and they're noticing, oh my God, I could eat more, and I'm missing something and maybe I should, find a way to incorporate more fruits into my diet. And a lot of times you can see that statistically, women tend to eat more. And when they're not eating the right things, you will see that they're kind of hindering their own weight loss progress. So this is really important as well, to recognize what's going on and to still eat more, but give your body the right types of foods to support you throughout this time. And then we move into the menstrual phase, which is our little winter phase, our phase where we want to go more inwards, where we're bleeding when our period starts. And that's also where, it's important to recognize that and also nourish our body with the right types of food, which again, I'm going to explain in a second. And so I was talking about this earlier, but your menstrual cycle is really like your fourth vital health sign, right? So when something is off, when you have painful periods, when you have PMS, when you have irregular cycles, this is usually a sign to look closer into that as well. And so your hormonal health will also affect your general health and your weight. Now, the interesting part about it is, for me, obviously, when I went vegan, it helped me regulate my cycle a lot, right? So even just by you being vegan and by cutting out, dairy products and all of these inflammatory products, which, usually aren't animal products, it can make a big difference to you and to your health already. And then, we take it a step further of really understanding our cycle and syncing with it. Now, I truly believe when women push away their menstrual cycle, we push away what makes us a woman and what the powerful force that we have within us. Because ultimately, if you think about it, it's like we have that creative force within us. We have that life force that sits within our womb, right? We can literally create life. That's how powerful we as women are. And so we can really create this deep connection with ourselves and our womb and our menstrual cycle when we allow ourselves to do so. And so I really love this because it really helps us understand a little bit more of like our different rhythms that we have. Probably, a lot of people are familiar with the circadian rhythm, which is our 24-hour clock, right? It's the clock that we all live by. It's, we go to bed at night, our body produces melatonin, right? Our sleep hormones so that we fall asleep. In the morning, our body produces cortisol so that we wake up, right? And throughout the night, our body's going through different bodily processes. And so we know how we feel when we are not living according to our circadian rhythm, right? When our circadian rhythm is interrupted, when you don't have a good night's sleep, when you go to bed a little bit later, we know how we already feel when we don't live in accordance to that. Now, women also have a second rhythm, which is called the infradian rhythm, which is our 28-day cycle. Now, this 28-day cycle is pretty much the 4 phases that I described to you. But the truth is, the majority of us women, we're living against it. So it's very important to understand that and to know, okay, we have our 24-hour, cycle, and we already know how we feel when we live against it. But we also have our 28-day cycle, which is also important to understand that we can live according to it, and it's going to really enhance our health and make us feel even better. And so I really want to explain this a little bit further because what's really important to look at is the hormone progesterone and estrogen. Just by looking at these 2 hormones and how these hormones fluctuate in our body really helped me understand myself and my body. And it really helped me be able to understand how to live with myself and how to give my body what it needs. So as an example, this is a 28-day clock or a 28-day cycle of someone, right? Usually, everyone has a different length of a menstrual cycle. Some women have a shorter cycle, some women have a longer cycle. I personally have a longer cycle. And so in the middle, you can see ovulation. And so when we look at the orange graph, this is our estrogen, right? So what we see here is estrogen is the dominant hormone in the first half of the cycle. And then when we look at this green graph, we can see that the hormone progesterone is the dominant hormone in the second half of the cycle. Now, this is really, really, really interesting and really important for us women to know, because literally our brain can change up to 25% throughout the cycle, which means that the way that you think, the way that you respond, even, your energy, the way that you work out, the way that you want to eat, your cravings, all of that is affected. So knowing that can really be supportive. And the more that you understand that, hey, my hormones are shifting and I might need something else during this day, it's really, really powerful because it gives you back your power as a woman instead of feeling like, oh, I have to follow this plan because it's on there, but my body is telling me something else. So it's really this powerful connection that you can make between, okay, I know I want to lose weight and I have this plan, but also knowing, okay, how can I adjust this plan now for myself so that it fits me and the phase of the cycle that I am in? And so let's talk about the first phase, which I quickly touched on, but also let's talk about health-wise, what you can do in the first phase of the cycle. So in the first phase of the menstrual cycle, called the follicular phase, as I mentioned earlier, your metabolism is slower. So lighter foods are great. So anything from like salads, like big salads, smoothie bowls are really awesome during this time. Anything that's a little bit lighter on the body, and just, a little bit like raw as well, right? Raw foods. Fermented foods are really great for the reason that it's gonna prime your microbiome for ovulation. So, for example, many women have too much estrogen in their bodies, right? Their bodies cannot detoxify their bodies from that estrogen that they're accumulating. So by incorporating fermented foods, it will help with your microbiome. It's going to help create like a healthy microbiome so that when you have too much estrogen, it's going to help you flush that excess estrogen out of your body, which is really important, okay? So that's why fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, tempeh, pickles, kombucha is really great to incorporate during this time. Obviously, fermented foods generally are really great, but especially during this time. And in terms of working out, interval workouts are great. So workouts where your body wakes up, right? Anything from like HIIT workouts where you, for example, work out for 30 seconds, like you do an exercise for 30 seconds and then you stop for 10 seconds, you rest, and then you go again for 30 seconds, you stop for 10 seconds. This is an example of like HIIT workouts, high intensity interval trainings. And this helps you really turn on your metabolism and get you back to speed pretty much. Then we have the second phase of the cycle, which is called the ovulatory phase. And here also, it's important to eat raw foods and fiber-rich foods because, again, as I said, your hormone estrogen is going to be the dominant hormone. And so you want to make sure that you don't have too much of it. And so eating fiber-rich foods and raw foods is going to help you flush out any excess estrogen that your body might not need in this moment. Now, the great part about the ovulatory phase is that you have lots of energy to burn and build muscle. So here, I usually say to my clients, do whatever exercise feels good for you. So any high intensity stuff, if it's strength training, if it's, CrossFit, if it's running, anything that like also increases your heart rate is really great during this time. And you have high estrogen levels, and high estrogen is going to help you build muscle, right? Which is really important as well. And then we move on into the luteal phase, which, as I mentioned, is usually one of the hardest phases for many women because of PMS symptoms, right? We might be feeling a lot more tired and more irritated and maybe more anxious. And so what's really important, and that's what happens a lot, is because we already feel, maybe unmotivated and maybe sad or anxious, we tend to be like, okay, I'm already feeling like this, whatever, I'm just going to eat however I want. But it's really important to notice, how hungry you are and what cravings are coming up, but still nourish your body with the right types of food. Because fun fact, because your hormone progesterone is dominant here, your metabolism is quicker too, which means you're hungrier. You're actually burning more calories at rest. So you need more food. So if you feel like I'm hungry during this time, it's for the specific reason that you actually are. And so eating slow burning carbohydrates is really good, right? So I know a lot of times women want to go to like quick energy sources, like, oh, I want the vegan donut, or I want the vegan burger, I want the vegan pizza because that feels right, good right now because I'm having all of these cravings. But the more that you allow yourself to eat like slow burning carbohydrates, B vitamins are really great. Like, roasted vegetables are great because they give you the sweetness. Brown rice is really great as well, right? Because, for example, the difference between white rice and brown rice is brown rice takes a little bit longer to digest. It's going to keep you fuller for longer. So making sure you eat more of those like slow burning carbs is really great during this time. It's going to keep you satiated for longer, and it's just going to give you more energy steadily as well. And here as well, what's important is to make sure you're eating regularly, right? So make sure you're eating, at certain times, and you're not going too long without eating, because it's going to drop your blood sugar. That's going to make you feel anxious. It can make your hormones go all over the place. It can make you feel hungry again and feel like I want to eat everything, right? So making sure you eat regularly as well is going to help with those cravings and with the energy as well, so that you have enough energy to get through the day. Now, what's really important here as well is to allow yourself to slow down and do gentle workouts, right? Anything from Pilates, like yoga, walking, hiking, anything that's a little bit slower and doesn't increase the heart rate as much. Because if we do something that increases the heart rate a lot, it can cause more anxiety. So if you're already struggling with that, if you already feel like you're generally an anxious person, or especially during this time, you feel more anxious, adding exercise on top that increases your heart rate a lot can make this feeling worse. So just pay attention to how your body is reacting. Some women are okay with that, and some women feel better if they do things that are more slow. And also in the fourth phase, which is the menstrual phase, it's very similar to that. It's also allowing your body to, do less high intensity and do more deep restorative activities, because it can actually turn on fat storage and muscle wasting. Okay. And so again, if you're doing things like yoga, Pilates, meditation is really awesome. And obviously this is the last phase of the cycle, when you get your bleed, when you get your period. And so making sure you eat iron-rich foods like chickpeas, tofu is really great. What else? Leafy greens, right? Seeds are awesome. So generally when you eat a variety of plant-based foods, you're going to be good with getting enough iron in. But here you can pay attention a little bit more to making sure you're still replenishing, the iron that you're losing. And here also eating slow cooked food and easy to digest food is great. So any soups and stews that are helping, that are easier to digest can help when you're on your period in the menstrual phase. So that is that. For my ladies in the perimenopause and menopause, especially if you're moving more into perimenopause and menopause, you have to understand that you are going to have a more difficult time metabolizing fructose, so fruit sugar. So that means that more of that fructose can be converted into glucose and therefore used for energy. So you see a lot of times women who are post-menopause, they're struggling with cramping or bloating or similar issues. Or sometimes they're also, having like this lower belly push, or retaining more fat around their midsection. You see that their body composition changes. So that's why it's important to focus on good quality vegan protein, right? Especially leucine as an amino acid. And also, I didn't write it on this slide, but making sure you're eating, of course, lots of like vegetables, more of like the carbs that are not, fructose, and also eating a lot of healthy fats, right? That's also going to really help with the body recomp, with the digestion. And I was already, sharing that typically women reach menopause around the age of 48 to 55, and perimenopausal symptoms can start closer to the age of 40. It's very individual. It's really depends from woman to woman. I've met women who started, their perimenopausal symptoms at 45, some women later, some women earlier. It's very dependent on woman to woman. Now, how we can manage menopause symptoms is also by being mindful of weight, right? And actually, if you have, you have too much weight, you have too much fat, those fat cells can produce excess estrogen. And so it's like a vicious cycle, because that excess estrogen will signal the body to store fat. So when you already have, fat, it's going to create this vicious cycle. So making sure you're, paying attention to the way that you're eating and losing the weight that you're holding onto is going to be really beneficial. Eating, I don't like the word clean as much, a clean diet, but what I mean with clean diet is making sure you're eating the healthy fats, making sure you're eating the fibers and probiotics as well, as super, super beneficial. Obviously getting enough sleep, right? I feel like sometimes we're saying things, I can sleep when I'm dead. Like, no, sleep is really, I say to my clients, it's like the most important thing. If there was something that like is the most important thing, it's sleep over everything. You got to rest. You got to make sure that you're getting enough sleep. Your body is going to do its thing. and then, you wake up full rested, your cravings are going to be lower. There are studies that show, the correlation between not enough sleep and obesity, right? So you just want to make sure that you're sleeping enough, your body's doing its thing, you wake up in the morning rejuvenated, you have the energy to eat well, work out, and all of those things. Managing stress, obviously, very, very important too. And limiting exposure to chemicals. And this applies to everyone, women in menopause and women, that are still having a normal regular cycle. Things like plastics, cleaning products, beauty products, they have endocrine disrupting chemicals. They act in the body like estrogen, and they can really play havoc in our body, right? So we want to look into the products that we're using as well. Obviously, always vegan and always organic certified is something that I always recommend. And then also going a step further and being like, okay, what else is in my products that I want to look at? But generally, if it's already vegan and organic certified, it's a lot better than any conventional products that you can find on the market. And then we have our third part. So we had the first part, which is the vegan nutrition. We had the hormonal health. And then one of my favorites is actually the mindset, which is part of the plentiful goddess system, as I like to call it. Here, what I love about this is, I'm going to give you a little story, which I think is going to relate to a lot of you. I tell this story quite a lot because, I meet a lot of women who tell me, you know what, Jess, I've been trying to lose weight for a while, and I lose the weight and I gain it back on, and I can't seem to really keep it off. Now, ultimately, on a conscious level, like, we know an apple is healthier than a piece of cake. We know that we should be moving our bodies. We know that we should be eating healthier. We know that the vegan burger, at the gas station is probably not the best option. But many people still do the opposite. Many people still tend to choose the unhealthy option, still tend to choose not to move their bodies, still tend to make decisions that are not good for them. And I want to give you this example of the thermostat setting. So let's imagine there is this woman called Katie. I'm going to call her, oh, you know what? I'm going to call her Katie. Now, Katie, she has always been kind of like the chubby kid. Okay. So let's say Katie, my throat is hurting again. What is going on? Hold on.
Oh no. Is it maybe it's dry where you live?
A little bit. Oh, sorry, guys. Getting there.
No worries. You're doing great. Please don't worry about it at all.
Okay, great. I'm just a human like everyone else, right? So I'm having my issues too. Yes. So let's imagine there's Katie. Okay, Katie is, let's say she grew up always being the chubby kid. What I mean with that, her parents would always say to Katie, "Oh, Katie, you're just chubby. Like, that's what it is." Her grandparents would always tell her, Katie is just the chubby one out of the family. She's always been like this. Katie grows up believing that too. Katie is now 15, she's 16, 17. She continues being the chubby kid, just a chubby person, because she has learned from an early age, you know what, I'm just a chubby person. I'm just a chubby kid. That's who I've always been. Now, Katie, let's say Katie is now 35 years old. And Katie is like, you know what? I finally want to go on a weight loss journey. I finally want to lose the weight that I've been holding on to, and I'm done being chubby Katie. Now, Katie goes on a weight loss journey, signs up to a weight loss program. And Katie's thermostat setting has always been, let's say, at 35 degrees. Katie has always been at 35 degrees. Now, I speak Celsius. I don't know Fahrenheit. I don't know if Fahrenheit is cold, but let's say it's 35, okay? She's always been at 35 degrees. That's where chubby Katie has always been at. Now, Katie goes on a weight loss journey, and Katie starts to lose the weight, and Katie's thermostat starts to increase. We're at 45, we're at 55, we're at 60, 70. Eventually, we're up here at 80. Katie's thermostat is now up at 80. Now, Katie is 35 years old. For the first time in her life, she is no longer chubby Katie. People are looking at her differently. People are telling her compliments. People are like, Katie, what happened to you? Oh my God, I don't recognize you. Who are you? what happened? You look great. All of those things, right? Everything in Katie's life starts to change. She starts to have different clothes. People look at her differently. Men look at her differently. Whatever that might be. Now, for 35 years, Katie has been programmed to believe Katie is just chubby Katie. She's always been here at 35 degrees. All of a sudden, she's at 80 degrees, and Katie's like, oh my God, I'm not used to this. This is not who I've been. This is not in my comfort zone. I've never been this type of Katie. I don't know how it is to be that. I know for my whole life, this is my comfort zone. This is where I've always been. I know how it is to be chubby Katie. So what does chubby Katie do? She goes back. She goes back to being chubby Katie because up here, it has never fully felt right. She's never changed the way that she ever thought about herself. Even though she was at a lighter weight, chubby Katie in her mind was always chubby Katie. And so what happens is that on the one hand, we know what we should do, but we don't do it because we have never raised our thermostat to the setting that we really want to be at. So I see women who lose the weight, feel great for a while, and then they sabotage themselves, right? So they tend to think from their old version. They have never been up here. They have never learned how to be up here. They have never learned how to be this new version. They have never learned how to hold all of the goodness that they haven't yet experienced. And it's so easy for them to fall back and be like, well, that's who I've always been. I guess it is what it is. So that's what, my message is for you here as well, is a lot of times we're not realizing that 99% of the harm is caused in your head, you and your thoughts, right? So when you're doubting yourself, when you're, having a hard time stepping out of your comfort zone, it's probably 99% of it is not even real. And 1% of the harm that is actually caused is by reality, what actually happens, right? So most of the time, the problem isn't the problem. The way you think about the problem is. So it's also reframing that and asking yourself, who do I truly want to be? What is my highest version of myself? If that's the weight loss for you, and you've been holding on to the 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds now for a while, and you're like, I wish I would be 40 pounds lighter. It would give me more energy. It would make me a better mom because I would have more energy to play with my kids and I would maybe better perform at my job. Asking yourself, where am I creating these self-doubts, these problems, and how can I stop myself from thinking that? And how can I visualize myself as this higher version of myself? And how would that feel and look like, knowing I could be up here and I can let go of my old identity? And that's what I see a lot of times. If it's women who want to lose weight or whoever you want to be, it truly starts with shifting that and also acting from that place, right? So this is really important, not only shifting your identity and being, okay, now I'm confident Katie, because here I was chubby Katie and I'm moving to confident Katie. Also asking yourself, knowing that I'm confident Katie right now, how do I have to think? How do I have to behave? What are the feelings that I need to feel from that new version of myself? And what are the actions that I'm taking? Right? So saying things like, instead of saying I will, saying things like I am confident now. I am this new version of myself. I am loving myself. I am eating healthy. I am working out in the morning. I am taking care of myself. I am putting myself first. That lands so differently than saying things like, I will eat healthy. I will do that. Because when you say I will, it's so much more further in the future. And it's so harder to achieve that rather than today saying to yourself, I am the new version of myself. I'm shifting this identity for me. And I will start acting and doing the things that I need to do. I'm going to start taking the action that I need to take in order for me to continue being Katie 2.0, Katie, confident Katie, that is no longer chubby Katie. And so that's how you're going to change that thermostat setting. That's how you can truly shift that into this new version of yourself, that's when you can truly feel empowered, because whatever action you're going to take, you're going to take it from that new version, that new identity of yourself. And that's truly when no one can stand in your way, because you feel so empowered. And that's when you know you're going to eat the apple instead of the cake. That's when the choices are going to follow, because you're feeling this new identity. So one beautiful exercise that I love to do is closing your eyes and just visualizing this new version of yourself that maybe is lighter and feels more confident and puts on her favorite clothes and is like, girl, I got you. And just feeling so empowered in your body and feeling like you can do whatever it is that you want, and knowing, having that confidence within you. And when you do not feel it yet, it's reminding yourself of that every day, closing your eyes, visualizing yourself in your highest version of yourself. That's when the actions that you're going to take are going to align with you so easily, because you trust that confident Katie is already here. She's not over there. She's not 10 years away. She's not a year away. She's already here. And so when you will start to achieve your health goals, your weight loss goals, and you will start to see the scale going down, you will start to see and feel better in your clothes, you will be able to keep that, because you've been that from the beginning. And I think that's just so powerful when we can truly connect with that version of ourselves. That's what really makes it, so beautiful. And I really love this picture here, because it's really about making progress and not being perfect. Because you know what? Some days progress is going to look like, on one day, all that you have energy for and all that you have time for is preparing your healthy breakfast. On another day, it might be the 10-minute workout that you can squeeze in. And maybe on the weekend, you can do all three. You can have a healthy breakfast, you can do a workout, and maybe you want to meditate and you want to sleep in and have the best beauty sleep of your life, right? Reminding yourself that every day, just 1% better is perfect. It doesn't have to be 100% every single day, right? So many people, I feel like, are stuck in that perfection mindset, and it's a black and white mentality. It has to be all perfect from day one. Some people go vegan overnight, like I did. And some people need to take it step by step. Some people need to start with a healthy breakfast first, and then they're going to move to the lunch, and then they're going to move to dinner. And some people can go all in. It doesn't matter where and who you are and how you want to get there. It's just that 1% better, just 1% better each day. And not comparing yourself to others, but asking yourself, how can I be just 1% better every single day? And I think that is really, really powerful. So one of my favorite quotes by Albert Einstein is, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So here I'm also inviting you and asking yourself, what are some of the things that I know I'm doing right now that are not getting me the results that I want, that are not helping me be confident Katie, that are not helping me be the best version of myself? And asking yourself right now, can you stop it today? Can you let go? And can you introduce something that is going to really help you feel your best way? So I think on that note, I don't know, can I quickly share? Oh, this is the triangle as well that I like to call it. It's like, we have the vegan nutrition, we have the hormonal health, and we also have the mindset. And when we put all three things together, that's when we can truly become powerful. That's when everything just falls into place and we're not missing out on one aspect, where you're putting all of it together. And that's when we can become the plentiful goddess that we want to be. So that is it. That is the plentiful goddess system. That are the three parts. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. I took a few notes and I do have a few questions. First of all, that's so cool that you're a Reiki person. I love Reiki.
Yes, I forgot to mention that, but yes, I'm also a Reiki healer. Yes.
Yeah. Do you do in-person or virtual sessions with people?
Yes. So when I have one-on-one clients, I incorporate my Reiki healings in there as well, depending on what the client's needs, right? So it's distance Reiki. The one that I do is called Holy Fire Reiki. So I have the level 2, and I usually incorporate that into my teachings as well.
Do you see clients in person, or how do you work with people? I'm curious how your program works. Is it individual coaching? Is it a group?
Yes. So the Plentiful Goddess program is group coaching, which is group of individual support. Okay, so it's all online. So I work with people from all around the world. If it's the States, I have people, from all over the States, Europe. We had someone from Bali now, New Zealand, Australia. And the beautiful part about the program is the community that we have of amazing vegan women from all around the world. And why I say it's group of individual is we have group sessions like weekly calls and support and the community, but everything else is individualized, right? So you have the individualized meal plan. You have a private chat together with me and my assistant coach, Amanda, that we check in with you. We check your progress. You get the training plan. So you have both. You have the individual as well as the group, which I think, to me, my clients get the best results when they have both of that, because they have the community and they're part of something bigger, but they also have the personal support, which I think is as important as that.
Nice. Is it something people do for like a month, a year? How does it work?
It's a 4-month container. So the Plentiful Goddess is a 4-month container. Afterwards, I have people who continue. I have a pretty big retention rate, if you want to call it. A lot of people just love it and they just want to keep staying and be part of it. But usually the initial is 4 months. If people come through this, I usually offer a bonus month. So if you were to come through this, you get a bonus month within the program, which is great because you're in it for 4 usually, and you get a bonus month, so you can stay longer and have even better and more results. So yeah, that's the length.
It was so interesting when you started your presentation, you noticed how men just had an easier time at losing weight.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting because I used to compare myself so much to my partner, and I would always be like, I wish I had the energy that he does. I wish I could just get up in the morning and do the heavy workout every day. And I was noticing I cannot do this. And you know what? It's okay because I'm not meant to. And that's what really helped me connect back with myself as a woman and be able to sync with my cycle and understand that I'm not meant to do it the same way every day. And that's what really helped, me feel my best and also my clients feel their best.
You mentioned at the beginning when you were talking about your different certifications that you were a hormonal health coach. What is that?
Yes, so hormonal health coach is obviously I incorporate the menstrual cycle, but hormones are everything, right? It's, for example, your cortisol, right? It's your stress hormone. So knowing that all of the hormones are connected in your body. And for example, a lot of women come to me as well, and they say to me, Jess, I've been trying to lose weight for a while, and they don't realize they have thyroid issues. They actually, their thyroid, they have thyroid problems, right? So thyroid hormones is also another thing that when your thyroid hormones are imbalanced and you're producing too little or too much of thyroid hormones, everything else is gonna be imbalanced in the body. So ultimately, I would say, to make it easier to understand, hormonal health is really about balancing your entire system, making sure your body is producing enough of each hormone, everything is playing well with each other. And so by me knowing all of this, I'm able to bring that into the program as well. And so, for example, when a client mentions their symptoms to me, it's usually very easy to understand what tweaks we have to take with nutrition, with lifestyle, that's going to help them balance the hormones again so that they're in homeostasis and their bodies are working properly and normally.
Yeah. Did you have to go through some kind of training to get that certification to be a hormonal health coach?
Yes, it's a very long training. It's a lot of information, a lot more than I thought. I thought I knew a lot. And then I did the certification. I'm like, there's so much to learn about it. And it's really, really powerful. It's very powerful. And again, it gives you this whole picture, right? So I'm certified in that, and it gives you this whole picture of all of the different hormones. I've also learned about men's hormones, which are very different from female hormones, right? But to be honest, most of it is tied around women's health because women are a lot more complex. Also, interestingly, it's tied into gut health as well, right? So your gut health is also connected to hormones and stress and all of that. So yeah, very, very, very big certification and lots of information to take away from that as well.
Nice. Well, when you showed your picture at the beginning with the acne, isn't acne often there is a hormonal component to it, isn't there?
Exactly. Exactly. So if you think about it, I think mine was on 2 levels. Mine was obviously my hormones were all over the place. So oftentimes what we can see is that there is an estrogen dominance in women that have hormonal acne. right? It can be connected with stress. So when women have a lot of stress, it produces cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which again, we need stress, we need cortisol. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but if we have too much of it, your body cannot detoxify itself from excess estrogen. And so when it cannot detoxify itself from excess estrogen, it can cause acne, right? It can cause those skin issues. Now, there are different things to look into it as well. PCOS, for example, is another condition that, a lot of women have when it comes to hormonal health. And one symptom of it is also acne. For me, it was more that my hormones were imbalanced. But also, when you think about it, I was consuming a lot of dairy products. And what's in dairy products? It's actually estrogen, which is not our own. So I was actually consuming estrogen from cows, which I wasn't meant to consume. And that was also creating an additional imbalance, not only because I went off of birth control, which was creating the complete imbalance, but it was on top of that, the dairy products that were making everything worse.
Yeah, that makes sense. So people love to know on Chef AJ Live, what do you personally eat in a day and what do you do for exercise?
Yes. So I love food. I'm like a big foodie. And I think that's really important. Like a lot of times, people have the misconception, oh, if I want to lose weight, like I have to eat salads and vegetables and I cannot eat my favorite foods anymore, which is not true. Like actually, when I went vegan, I became like the biggest foodie ever. And I love to try food. Whenever I travel, I'm like, I just want to try all of the food that I can find. That's how much I love to support, the vegan movement and try food. But for me, a full day of eating looks something like, I honestly have the same thing for breakfast every day. Let's see if I have a picture here of my breakfast meal.
Nice.
So I can quickly share my screen. So this is, for example, the meals that I eat and that my clients eat as well. This is like how my breakfast would look like. I have oatmeal every day. For the reason that, first of all, decision fatigue, I don't have to think every day what I need to eat because I'm so busy. Like I just love my oatmeal. I put some protein powder in it to up the protein, which is keeping me full for a lot longer. Berries, I always have my berries on there. If it's blueberries, if it's raspberries, berries are so good for you. And then I top it with some peanut butter. I put in some chia seeds in there, some other fruits that I can find. I actually have kiwi every day too. So this is usually what I eat for breakfast. These are some of my other meals that I also eat regularly. This is chickpea pasta, which I personally love because any bean pasta is great because it's high in protein and it keeps you fuller for longer. I just love the taste of it as well. And I love to add some spinach to it, some dried tomatoes, some hummus, and some more vegetables, right? So this is, for example, a wok with tofu and vegetables as well. I love my wraps. Like sometimes when I don't have a lot of time, I'm like, okay, I have a whole grain tortilla, put some hummus on there, cut out some fresh vegetables, throw in some tofu or tempeh or seitan, and I'm good to go. And this is tofu scramble as well with some veggies, extra high protein as well, super healthy. It's gonna keep you full. And this is one of our clients' favorites. It's like a Snickers smoothie bowl. So would you like, this is unhealthy, but it's actually really healthy. Like you wouldn't know, like you wouldn't guess that there are vegetables and stuff in there. There's actually like frozen cauliflower in there, which is really nice. So like you're sneaking all of those vegetables in there, but it just tastes, amazing. And a lot of people come to me that like, I'm a big, for example, chocolate person. Like I need something sweet. So I love to create meals that just give me that taste of like, ooh, a little bit of indulgence, but it's healthy as well. And it's nourishing my body. So this is just one example of like, or a couple of examples of like literally the meals that I'm having as well. So I never give my clients things that I'm not eating myself, if that makes sense.
Everything looks really delicious.
It is. And it's, the best part about it is so quick to just like cook. Because a lot of people also have that misconception, oh, I'm going to take hours in the kitchen and I don't have the time. Like each of those meals you can prepare in like less than 15 minutes, easy. And I feel like that's what's a good point for a lot of people, when they like don't know what to cook, super easy to just throw it all together and enjoy the meal.
Nice. Do you have time to exercise?
Yes, so that's another thing. I do strength training mainly. So I'm also a yoga teacher. So I do cycle sync with my cycle, right? So I do strength training during my follicular, ovulatory, and the beginning of my luteal phase. So I focus on just building muscle. Strength training is very good for women too, and for hormonal health, building, that bone density. A lot of women later on struggle with osteoporosis, right? So it's going to help with retaining the muscle, because the older we women get, the less muscle we have, right? So that's an important aspect as well. So I do strength training, and then I do also like yoga and Pilates more towards like the end of my cycle. I love hiking as well. We went like on a super like 4 hour long hike yesterday in nature. I just love being in nature. So my motto is always like movement is the most important. If that's strength training, like I just love to experiment as well. I love to dance. So I'm going to be signing up to dance classes. You know, tennis, playing tennis, just walking. I love going on walks and just meditating and like thinking about life. Even walking is so powerful already. I feel like people overcomplicate exercise, but if you can go on a walk twice a day, like you're already doing so much for your body, and it can already have such beneficial benefits. It already can have great benefits for you, just by going on walks and getting those steps in. So yeah, doing all of the things and just experimenting and seeing what I like and what I don't.
Nice. Have you ever heard of something called seed cycling?
Yes, yes. I teach my clients about that too. So pretty much you're incorporating different seeds into the different phases of your cycle, which is going to help with, your estrogen levels, with your progesterone levels, which is a very powerful tool that I like to use. I personally don't do it as much because I cycle with my whole cycle and like nutrition. So for example, when I work with someone, they get like this whole table of like specific foods that are great for each cycle, and seeds are one aspect of it, right? So as I said, like eating lighter, for example, in the first half of the cycle, eating more like denser, fuller meals in the second half of the cycle already usually makes a big difference for people. And then, just paying attention to like fruits, vegetables that are really good for each phase, that are more iron rich, more zinc rich, for example, during certain phases, is very powerful as well.
You mentioned you're also an ethical vegan, which we appreciate. Thank you. And that you literally went vegan overnight. What were you searching for when you started finding out about this over 6 years ago?
It's interesting because I ask myself the same question. I was like, how did I was on YouTube. And I remember looking at videos from like vegan influencers. Okay. So I was just like looking at, them speaking about skin. I think I was looking into like how to get rid of acne or something like that. And then I found those vegan influencers, and they were speaking about veganism and plant-based diets and all of that. And I was like, interesting. And I do think something on the right side popped up. And I think it was Earthlings or some type of documentary that popped up in that moment. And I clicked on that. And I remember vividly, I saw footage of piglets, small piglets being thrown around, dead piglets. And I saw that and I was like, oh my God, what am I watching? What is this? And I couldn't I was like, because I just, obviously everyone thinks small little baby pigs are cute. And I'm like, why are they being treated like that? What is happening? And so I remember seeing this footage. And then I remember seeing Earthlings as well. I remember seeing footage of the cows, how they're being treated, and like, I couldn't continue watching it. I just stopped. I was like, I just cried my eyes out. I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And overnight, I just remember I had like cheese left in my cupboard. I had eggs, and I had like olives with anchovies in it, and I gave it to my neighbor or to the person I was living with. I'm like, you can eat this. I no longer want to eat this. And that's kind of how it started for me. And then the next day I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. I went into work. Back then I was working in marketing, and I was like, what am I going to eat today? Let's see, because I don't know. So that's kind of how it happened for me. But I was just so convinced I was never going to go back.
Wow. Did any of your friends and family join you in this way of eating?
My partner. Yes, actually my partner. So My parents were very supportive of it. My mom, she is mostly plant-based, I would say, when she has the option. So when she's around me, she's mostly plant-based. She eats a lot less meat. She incorporated a lot more like tofu and like alternatives into her meals, which I really love to see. So she's a lot more aware of it now too. And my partner, actually, we met when we weren't together yet. And he knew I was already vegan. I was vegan for 1 year at that time. And he knew I was already vegan. So he was the first man to actually be curious about it and not judge me. He wasn't just like, oh, I could never do it. He was more like, let me have a listen. Tell me why. And so the first thing that I told him was about the dairy industry. And I told him about that because I was like, meat, and everyone knows, meat. But I told him like, why vegan and why not vegetarian, of like the dairy industry and what is actually happening, to those cows and all of that. And he was like, oh my God, I had no idea. And he was like a big meter as well, like big meat eater. And then he's like, okay, how can I find out more information? And I sent him Earthlings. I sent him the documentary Earthlings, and he watched the whole thing. And that's how he did it in like 3 days, I think. And he's like, okay, I'm convinced I'm going vegan as well. And we weren't together then yet. So people tell me that I'm forcing him to be vegan, but it was his conscious choice before we even started dating, So he went vegan before I actually, we decided we're gonna be dating. So that's how it happened. And I really appreciated his openness and his like willingness to understand and not just judge me and be like, oh, I could never do this, or give, comments of like, hey, I don't really eat that much meat, like everything that, we vegans hear. He wasn't like that at all. He was really curious to hear more.
Well, that must make it a lot easier.
Yes, I'm very happy that he reacted like this, because usually that's not the reaction that I get.
I'm curious where you stand on alcohol, where it fits in with people, especially that are women that are struggling to lose weight.
I barely drink alcohol. I don't want to say I don't drink alcohol at all, but you will see me like drink one glass of wine like once every 2 or 3 months. Like that's how much I drink. First of all, I don't enjoy how I feel with it. I don't enjoy the feeling afterwards. I don't need it. And when I do it, it's because more of like, oh, a celebration, or like Christmas. Like Christmas was there, and I was like, I'm gonna have like literally, I had like one glass of this little wine, and I'm like, that's it. I don't want to do this. This doesn't make me feel good. But yes, alcohol is empty calories. We don't need it. It actually is inflammatory in the body too. So you're adding calories to your day that you're not really needing. I always say everything in moderation. I have clients who just enjoy drinking. And then I'm saying to them, you know what, if you want to have your occasional 2-3 glasses of wine once a week, you can have that, but make sure you are nourishing your body with good whole foods most of the time. I give them kind of like a guideline of like eating a little bit differently throughout the day to like save a little bit of calories. Usually I'm not a big fan of that, but if you really want that and you want to make progress, like that can sometimes help if you're going to eat a couple. So it's like more of eating more nutrient dense, like salads, like a lot of vegetables and like protein, like, tofu, saving like a little bit on carbs, so that when you have a drink, it's not going to like crazy spike your calories in the day, because one weekend of drinking too much can mess up your entire like weight loss progress that you wanted to make throughout the week, right? And also, to be honest, for women in perimenopause and menopause, alcohol is going to make symptoms worse. Even in the luteal phase, if you already have PMS symptoms, if you have hormonal imbalances, if you have an estrogen dominance, which a lot of women have, drinking alcohol will make these symptoms very likely worse.
Thanks for saying that. So if people want to connect with you, either to take your program or just follow you, where's the best place?
Instagram. I'm big on Instagram. So it's I am Jessica Karwat. And then I also have a website. It's www.thewomensacademyoftransformation.com. And then in there, you're going to find the different offers, the programs that I have, my signature program, the Plentiful Goddess. I also have a podcast, which is called the Plentiful Goddess Podcast. So the same name as the program. I'm available on all platforms to listen to. And yeah, Facebook, pretty much like both social things. The biggest one is definitely Instagram. Feel free to send me a question if you have any question. Feel free to contact me on there. I'm happy to have a conversation with people and just kind of like go back and forth. Like, I really love to connect with people, so I'm very open, about that too. And obviously, the podcast has a lot of great information, a lot of great stuff as well to listen to.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
It was a wonderful presentation. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow for another great show.